It's June. We're approaching the longest day. It's therefore the Le Mans 24-hour race. It's that time of year, the endurance race that they always want to win. It's the 86th running of the Le Mans 24 hours. We've already had the first day. That was yesterday. 4 hours of free practice, 2 hours of qualifying yesterday around the Circuit de la Sarthe. We've got another 4 hours of qualifying up and coming here. As you know, Porsche have won outright here for the past 3 years. It was close last year. The LMP2 car was so close to taking an outright victory. Aston Martin took the GTE Pro category and Ferrari took the GTE AM category, but that was 12 months ago. The weather somewhat cooler. Of course it's going to be cooler because it was so hot last year. Now then, in qualifying yesterday, it was this car here that was quickest on a 3:17.2. Sebastian Buemi, part of the Toyota number 8 squad, was quickest ahead of its team sister car number 7 in the LMP2 class. The number 48 IDEX Sport car was quickest in GTE Pro. It was Jimmy Bruni who set a scintillating lap to be quickest by some 1.6 seconds on his first and only eventual flying lap before he went off at the beginning of his second flyer. Let's hope they'll do more laps this afternoon, this evening. And in GTE AM, the two Dempsey Proton Racing Porsches were first and second in class. So then, it was the Toyotas dominating. The pair of them had a lead of some 2.2 seconds over the next best cars, the, in other words, non-hybrid squad, made up of the SMP Racing, BR Engineering. Now, a lot of focus, of course, on Fernando Alonso, two-time Formula One world champion, who's racing here this weekend. He's already raced the Toyota. He raced at Spa in early May, took the victory, but that's a 6-hour race, completely different kettle of fish here. Alan McNish, three-time Le Mans winner and world endurance champion, sitting alongside me in the commentary box. Alonso, he knows what he's doing in Formula One, but he's not king of the castle here quite yet.
No, and I think he is very aware that as much as you know, his actual career has got a tremendous amount of success attached to it, success here at Le Mans is a different thing. And the simple fact is that many drivers who have been Formula One world champions have actually tried to achieve that, never quite managed to do it, and Graham Hill is the one that's got that special triple crown of Monaco here and the Indy 500, and Fernando Alonso would love to try to do that. There's alongside, you know, there's another chappie here as well from Formula One world champion, and that's you know, Jenson Button. But Fernando has got this man Pascal Vasselon, who's the technical director at Toyota, hopefully from his perspective guiding them into that sort of fabled thing, because this is a special race for them. This is a race that Toyota have never won. It's slipped through the finger on so many occasions. The
Japanese manufacturers have only ever won one race, and that was with the Mazda back in 1990. Just the one victory that the Japanese have taken, so it's a passion of theirs. You know, in rallying, the Japanese focused upon Monte Carlo and Safari and RAC, but this is a big focus. And of course, as you know as well as anybody, Alan, you know, German endurance racing, it's here in force with, you know, the BMWs returning to Le Mans with the new 8 Series, and familiar faces from your part of the world, your garages of past, should I say, Alan?
Yep, and that was Loic Duval there, who was my teammate in 2013. We won this race and won the World Championship together, so Loic and I certainly have got a bit of history. He's got a bit of history here, having been a Le Mans winner, and actually born in Chartres, which is just a little bit along the road, but you know, he wants to make sure he's be able to do that for a second time in the LMP2 category. Fernando Alonso there, you see, just getting in. We're now, what, 11 minutes from the beginning of the session, and this is the second part of qualifying as well. You know, they had the first part from 10 o'clock to midnight last night, but this is actually going to be a little bit quicker, I would say, and also they'll all want to go out there very quickly, because if you look at the clouds, Toby, out the window, it's not looking as if it's going to stay dry too long.
They did say that it might have rained a little bit earlier this afternoon, but it seems that we may well have got away with it. Alan, you've been obviously involved in Formula One, driven in Formula One, commentating on Formula One. Is Alonso the top two, the top three fastest drivers out there, irrespective of what car he's got in 2018.
Well, one thing about Fernando Alonso is that it doesn't matter the car that's underneath him, and it doesn't matter what he says in the press and things, because he does like to sort of wind people up and things like that. When he gets in a car, he can't help himself but give it everything he's got, and so he will drag the best out of a bad car, but I don't think he's got a bad car here at this moment in time.
Jenson Button sharing with the SMP cars. That's the sister car, the number 17, just on the other side of the garage. So it's 11 and 17. That Sarazan in that car, Orozhev and Ishakan in there.
They were very quick yesterday, actually. The third fastest was Sarazan. Stefan Sarazan's been on the pole around here quite a few times overall in his days with Peugeot. 3:19, a couple of seconds off. I think in reality, there's quite a few guys in that area with Rebellion just behind them as well, which are the non-hybrid category that could have got a lot closer to Toyota, but didn't quite get the clean lap with traffic. And that's been one of the keys around here forever, is getting a clean lap with traffic. The Toyotas were able to do it, but the others struggled a wee bitty.
4 classes in the race, LMP1 and LMP2. You're looking at one of 4 Jackie Chan DC racing cars. The man waving at the camera is David Cheng, the DC of Jackie Chan DC Racing. 2 regular World Endurance cars and 2 from their Asian program. And they're the biggest team of cars in LMP2. Those are the prototypes that bear no relationship to any road car. And then we've got the GT classes, which are basically supercars, hypercars for the road, developed for racing in either a pro class or the Pro-Am class. Newcomers to the LMP1 field, Ginetta, built in Leeds, Lawrence Tomlinson's crew. Lawrence is the current owner of Ginetta, a company set up by the Walklett brothers back in the 1960s. It is celebrating its 60th anniversary this year. In fact, 58 then would have been 58, the Walklett brothers, setting up Ginetta. I can't subtract live on air, we know this much. Big crowd already here from the early part of the week. Actually, some of the drivers were saying in the pits today, they were surprised at just how many people there were on Tuesday evening. They have an hour-and-a-half autograph session for the drivers. Normally it's pretty busy. They were saying, no, this is another sort of level of busy. And again, perhaps the introduction of Fernando Alonso and a non-endurance racing fan base is having some little effect there.
And I think the spin-off from the 3 victories of Porsche, and what a car that was with the 919 hybrid. The Audis, introduction of the diesel in 2006, the hybrid that the Audis had, and it's just getting bigger and bigger, and this is the focus. I said at the top of the program, this is the endurance race you want to win.
The plan for you is 8 laps total, but if you feel confident, and we can abort run earlier if all okay is on your side. We will test options in the car just to read the balance and we start from there. As you know, the wind is still tailwind going through 3 and back straights up to 10-15 kilometers. As you know, there's lots of change on the cars being done overnight. So if something is not right from driving point of view, just notify on the radio to us. We obviously going to monitor car.
Bit of information from Fernando Alonso's engineer to him as he's sitting and waiting in the car. 2 main topics there was the fact that he's on a 6-lap run, 8 laps total, so that's the out lap, 6 flying laps, and then coming on the in lap. But the other thing saying about the option tyre and the wind, track temperature's 20 degrees, which is about 5-6 degrees at least cooler than it was yesterday, and the option tyre being the softer night tyre, and so it's probably on the crossover period of that. And I would expect that longer run that they're going to do is to see how that tyre is and how it behaves when the fuel is starting to bleed off it. When we're talking about fuel, it's about 35 kilos of fuel that's in the car at the moment. Kilos being weight.
Mikhail Alishin in the car that he shares with Vitaly Petrov, who just saw gooning for the cameras, and Jenson Button. Jensen hasn't driven the car yet in a race, so it'll be very entertaining to see how he fares his first time ever here at Le Mans. At the pit exit, you can see a yellow Dallara prototype, the Racing Team Netherlands car. Jan Lammers, 62 years old, is in that car. 30 years ago, Jan Lammers won Le Mans for Jaguar with Andy Wallace and Johnny Dumfries back in 1988, which I recognised with a shock today. It was my first time working at Le Mans. Henrik Hedman, Ben Hanley, joined by Renger van der Zande in the number 10 LMP1 car run by Dragon Speed. And that Dallara chassis, BR Engineering chassis, replaces the one that was destroyed in the qualifying crash for Pietro Fittipaldi in the 6 hours of Spa. So that's a brand new chassis. We're getting ready for 2 hours. Al, if you were in a car right now, would you be hoping to go out and have another tilt at setting a fast qualifying lap, or are you now really thinking, okay, well, whatever we are on the grid, we are on the grid, we really need to be working on making sure our race program is fully together?
Well, I think two things. One, how did you get on last night with your program? So, for example, the Ginettas that we spoke about earlier, they had some problems yesterday, didn't do as much running. And so for them, it's a case of maybe aborting qualifying ideas and actually running through, making sure all their drivers actually get enough time and feeling and consistency with the car. If you have had a good run, then you would probably look at having a go at it. But, you know, the thing that I would be looking at right now is my weather forecasting. And they've got weather forecasting around here. We used to have it where it was split up into 8 points on the circuit. And I would want to try to go out and get a lap time. I don't think the Toyotas necessarily will, because they're in good shape anyway. But maybe the ones that are a little bit out of position, that maybe didn't get out of traffic or something like that, they'll go for a qualifying run.
So it's Fernando Alonso, and we now ride on board with Mike Conway, the number 8 and the number 7 car respectively. Conway kills the engine and it just coasts to a halt at the end of pit lane. They're getting in the queue. The pit lane will open in 2 3/4 minutes time, but they're just getting to the front of the crocodile to make sure that they have got a clear run. And as Alan has said already, it's all about getting a clear run around this circuit. 13.6 kilometers around the Circuit de la Sarthe, and that was the main reason why the pole position time last year was a 3:14.7 with that clear run. Andre Lotterer, former Le Mans winner with Audi, now in the number 1 Rebellion. The Rebellion with a 4.5-litre Gibson V8 behind it.
That car was, we went out and looked onto the circuit, didn't we, yesterday at the Porsche Curves, and that car looked very, very good there. Extremely committed, as you would expect with the driver lineups they've got, but also the fact that that team has finished on the overall podium themselves when all the big guns were here a few years ago, and they were able to deliver it with a consistent performance, and have won the categories in different categories actually all the way through. So Rebellion, a very, very strong contender, and probably the biggest thorn in Toyota's side at this moment in time for consistency.
Yeah, Barnhue Hayden's team ran their own chassis in LMP1 against all the factory hybrid teams. Went back to P2 a couple of years ago, got back to winning a lot, remembered how good that feels. And then when the opportunity of a privateer P1 program came up, they jumped at it with both hands. Marco Sorensen, Nicky Thiem and Darren Turner in the brand new Aston Martin GT. This is the new shape Vantage. The road car launched towards the tail of last year, the racing car with it. The brand new GT3 car is also here. That is racing unrestricted in an Aston Martin, all Aston Martin race on Saturday morning. And that looks every bit as potent as the GT Pro cars that we've got here.
And it does look stunning.
Yeah.
Got to say, performance on the circuit yesterday wasn't quite as stunning as the look of the car, but I'm sure that'll come in time.
Yeah.
But it certainly is a bigger car than the previous version, and just getting to grips with it.
30 seconds, under 30 seconds to go green.
And our own Peter Dumbreck, who you'll hear on the broadcast this weekend, will start that Aston Martin from pole position in an Aston Martin Vulcan that he is driving with Top Gear presenter Chris Harris. There's Patrick Dempsey, who's raced this 24 hours a number of times. He's raced in Daytona, Sebring, IMSA World Endurance Championship, and now running his own team with 3 cars here at Le Mans.
2, 1, pit lane is and the name that the driver is in the car is the same, which is in the timing displays.
Race director Eduardo Freitas just commenting there, please remind, because the driver's got a driver ID plug so that the race direction knows how long drivers have been in the car and who's done the qualifying time. As you can see there, Andre Lotter, that cable that comes down, that's not only the radio plug so that he's got pitch-to-car communication, but it's also an ID, a specific ID for each driver. Sometimes, though, there is a little bit of a malfunction and you need to just correct it and making sure that you've got the right driver in the car at the right time.
Now, you talked a little bit earlier, Alan, about things that you might need to get on with, particularly Ginetta, that had limited running yesterday with the brand new car that's never raced and hasn't got a lot of testing mileage, is you've got to get all your drivers qualified in the night. They don't have to have done any running in the daytime session, but they have to have done 3 laps each in the 10 to midnight session, either yesterday or tonight. So if you haven't got all your drivers qualified, that's your very first thing as soon as we get into the final 2 hours at 10 p.m.
Yes, it is, but your final, you're right there. However, and that 20-minute period before it becomes dark is probably one of your better times to do a qualifying run. Yep. So if you feel confident, then you do it then, but you've got to ensure that your driver doesn't have a problem. Yeah. Otherwise, you've got a bit of an issue. But it's certainly not for these guys, because the Toyota were riding on board with Toyota number 8 going down towards the second chicane on the Mulsanne Straight. They qualified all of their drivers last night. You've got to do 3 timed laps, so that means with in and out laps it's 5 laps in total. And so 5 laps, though, is getting on for nearly 20 minutes. Yeah. And so it's, you know, it does take away quite a bit of the time. So it's a 2-hour session, 3 drivers. That's one of the 2 hours already gone, just making sure your drivers are qualified.
And of course, if you have an incident or there's a red flag or something in that 3-lap run, you come in and then you maybe have 1 lap left to do, but you've got to do an out lap and an in lap to complete that. So that's another 3 laps. And yeah, so yeah, things can compound and start to run away with you. Ideally, you'll get all your drivers qualified on the first night session, but ideally, and what happens in motor racing, aren't necessarily always on the same page.
Yeah, but that was, we're seeing the Dempsey Proton car there just waiting, and a little bit going on, the fuel on the left-hand side going in. But, you know, their sister car in the GTE Pro, in the first lap, then that's when it went out, stuck it onto the pole position. But unfortunately, there was a bit of an incident on the second lap, so they have to actually do it. So the leaders of GTE Pro, with Jimmy Bruni at the wheel, have got to actually get all their drivers qualified.
Yeah. Well, that car, you saw Matt Campbell with Julian Andlauer, 2 Porsche Junior drivers, Junior factory drivers, who have been dropped in along with Christian Reed. Christian Reed started in GT racing when you and I were doing FIA GTs, Alan, some 15 years ago with his father Gerald. Then they were run by Proton Racing, and he has remained with Proton ever since, either in Proton or Dempsey Proton. There you can see the Le Mans circuit. The red dot, we're on board, that's Arnage, the slowest corner on the circuit, slower even than the 2 chicanes at the end of the lap. And this is all public road still, from where it says S1 on your map, all the way up to where we turn hard right in just a moment, off the public road here and into the Porsche curves that were introduced in the 1980s to cut off the road run through to White House Maison Blanche.
Sorry to jump in there, but you saw the Ginetta just diving down the inside of Alician in the SMP car, and then Alician coming back down the inside of him, which was a little bit brave on an outlap at Le Mans, if you ask me.
You can see from the rear of the Ginetta, you can see that the exhausts come out just behind the fin. The exhaust pipes themselves are about 4 inches, 10 centimeters long. You can see the explosion of unburnt fuel appearing from there, and you can see them glowing red hot as they go over those bumps. Well, the 3 of us up here in the commentary position, Louise Beckett is down there in the pits. Louise, good evening. I hope you're not getting rained on quite yet.
Not just yet. As you can hear, it is very loud here, so excuse me if I cannot hear you. I can just see right now Tech 36 is on its way in. They've got the dollies out, so that car's going back in the box. I'll find out what they're doing to it.
Okie dokie. Jump in at any time if you have those raindrops falling on your head.
I certainly will.
Okay, now here's the Rothmans Porsche, the retro colour scheme for the Mante car, the Porsche GT car. It's number 91. It's on pole position at the moment in the GTE Pro category. Jimmy Bruni, first Le Mans that he is doing not in a Ferrari in recent years because he's doing it in the Porsche. He did one flying lap last night, beginning of the second lap, flew off on the way up to the Dunlop chicane. And they couldn't restart the car, couldn't restart it. He didn't want to risk it, so they parked it for the rest of the 2-hour session last night. So they're sort of 2 hours behind, Alan.
Yeah, when you say flew off, he also flew on that one lap, 1.5 seconds quicker than their teammates, which was in total 2 seconds quicker than any of the competition, which was the number 66 Ford GT. So it was a blinding lap by Jimmy Bruni to do that. Unfortunately, it wasn't quite the rest of the session they were hoping for. But yes, you're right, they need to now get on with some race preparation as well.
Because it's all very well being on pole position. Is it just the pride thing?
Yeah, it's a pride, but it's also, you know, you've got a quick car and you understand your quick car. It depends whether it was the car that sort of took most of the pole position or the driver just taking huge risks to be able to do it. But I think on that particular occasion, the fact that they're backed up by their teammates, it was Bruni taking big risks, but it was also the car being very good as well. This is another car, another competitor. I think, you know, we've got a battle, a real battle. Is Tony Kanan's a person we're looking at there, Indy 500 winner, and also the IndyCar Championship. He is in the 67 Ford GT as the sort of third driver, the backup driver in a way. And this is his first time at this beautiful circuit.
And he's one of 4 or 5 IndyCar drivers who are racing on Sunday in Texas and flew over coming into Le Mans on Monday to go through. Scrutineering is held in the centre of town on Sunday and Monday, so they had to arrive and get all their kit and sign on and all of that on Monday. Fresh is not quite the word off the red eye from Texas to Paris. So
and the race winner from Texas, Scott Dixon is
exactly,
here. So,
yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot of American interest, and of course that's part of a 4-car Ford team. 2 cars, regular appearers in the World Endurance Championship. The other 2 are Ford Chip Ganassi Racing's crews from the IMSA series. Now, American right front wheel has come off the SMP Racing.
It doesn't look like it's come off, but it's certainly down on the right front there. Sorry to stop you.
Oh my goodness. Now,
in the old days, that would have been an enormous accident.
That would have been the end of that chassis.
It was nearly the end of the teammate as well. That's Norman Nato there in the LMP2 car. And what it's done is, because that's where since last year, they moved the wall back 35 metres, and that's an anti-skid surface, very, very abrasive. So when he spun across there, he's had his foot hard on the brake, and it's basically worn the right front tyre through on the inner edge, and that's why it's down on that side, because it's punctured the right front tyre, and I wouldn't be surprised right rear. Whichever way, those 4 tyres are never going to see the light of a racing car again.
No, that was a proper Code Brown moment there, wasn't it?
Well, I was speaking to Harrison Newey, who is his teammate earlier on, and he did say the car was rather nervous, but that was freaky nervous.
Well, we were watching out there exactly at that spot last evening, and everywhere through the Porsche curves, the Delaras look like they're hopping around a little bit at the back. In contrast, the Ginetta looks absolutely as planted as the Toyotas.
And this is the LMP2 car. Again, you see it. He's touched the inside curb, just kissed it with that left front. And you see even there, the wipers popped up when the car was spinning sideways. So lucky that he didn't take one of their sister SMP cars out as well, who took avoiding action round the outside. New set of tyres going on there for the number 1, Andre Lotterer.
I think Andre Lotterer might be having a tilt at not just being the best of the rest. Wonder if he may be...
94 crashed.
So this is one of the 2 red, white and grey traditional, quote, coloured Porsches. It is Porsche's 70th anniversary this year, of course, of the founding of the company, and he is down at
Indianapolis. He's gone straight on at Indianapolis, and we believe it might be raining in some places. Here we go, Alan.
Yeah, it comes in, touches the curb on the right-hand side, and then he just loses the rear. It does look like there's a few... Yeah, he's hitting hard. That car, I think, is going to take a little bit of time to rectify. He touched the inside curb, and then he sort of got a bit of a wiggle on Sven Muller in the car, as you can see there. And then it's just spun it into the barrier on the right. And then the worst point, though, is he's touched the barrier, and then he's gone into the tyre wall with the left-hand side of the car. Left-hand drive car, and you can see all the tyre marks there. That'll be quite a big impact for him.
And also, they'll need to replace that barrier, so there may be a slow zone there for a while. They might try and do it in the hour before we get into our final dark session. Depends what the marshals on the site say.
Now, the one thing it has done is it has just ruined Andre Lotterer, and he's just gone out on a new set of tyres. So therefore, from Lotterer's point of view,
another one.
He'll never have a run at it.
Another one for the Eurasia car.
That's Tracy Krone's car, Krone Racing colours.
And it's Krone at the helm at the moment, so that right front has gone down, yeah. And that front splitter dragging on the floor, so that's bad luck. Here we are on board with the number 38. This is on the way down to Indianapolis, a slow zone. It's 80 kilometers an hour through here, so just 50 miles an hour for these guys. They're held on the limiter. What this does is that it saves the race direction, putting out a safety car. The Krone car has actually only got 3 wheels on it. I can see out of the commentary box window, it hasn't just got a puncture, it's got no wheel at all. That's why it's completely on the floor on that front right-hand side. So yeah, slow zones, because of a quicker way than sending a safety car out for a 13.6 kilometre circuit.
Yeah, you can see the wheel hub there where you've got the red end on it as it comes out from the brake. You can see the shiny part which says that the nut has basically sheared off, and they should have a retaining pin where the nut cannot completely come off and the wheel can't completely come off. So there needs to be an investigation in why the tyre wasn't located on correctly in the first place, and then secondly how the blooming thing came off completely.
It's just machined its way straight through the retaining pin at speed.
Yeah, but you've got pins, 3 pins that actually come out to hold them in position so that you don't have bouncing wheels. For Tracy Krone, there's nothing he could do in the car except do exactly what he did, rescue it and then come back.
Mike Conway runs on at the top of the hill in the Dunlop chicane. So he's had a moment. Is that a bit of moisture, or is he just taking a bit of a risk at the first corner of a flying lap?
A couple of hours ago, there were a few, not even drops of rain, but just a little feeling of mist in the air, and the problem is...
Oh, lock-up, just huge lock-up.
On the curbs.
Yeah.
But again, there's another set of tyres that are useful for nothing other than making a coffee table. Not that Michelin allow tyres to leave the circuit. They're extraordinarily careful about making sure that whatever technology they have in a tyre never leaves their eyesight, if you like.
They take them back to Clermont-Ferrand. They shred them and used in for a power station kind of thing. Yeah. Used for energy.
Well, the other thing that they do is that they examine very carefully what has happened to the tyre and correlate that with what the weather was doing, what the track conditions were doing, what car it was on, what stage of the race, and so on. So they learn, you can learn an awful lot from a used round black thing.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, there you can see the nut that's the Eurasia car that lost the wheel. The nut there, and they're now trying to, I would think, rethread the hub itself.
Yeah, they're going to try and tap out the locking pins, which are obviously stuck in the middle of the hub. Now, what might actually have to happen is they might need to change that entire suspension corner with the upright and the disc and everything else attached to it.
Yep.
Tracy Krone can do nothing but sit and wait at the moment. In fact, nobody's going to be able to do very much because we've still got the slow zone down towards that incident at Indianapolis. Rest of the lap is free, as you can see with the Aston Martin. Go as quick as you like. What you can't do is complete an entire flying lap, but then that's as much a race simulation as anything else. And off is 67. That's the Andy Priaulx, Harry Tinknell, Tony Kanaan car.
It's Priaulx in the car there. He's lost it in Tetra Rouge, and that's done the back end massively of that car. And he's lost it coming in to Tetra Rouge, but managed to keep on his way. very quick reaction there, sneaking down to first gear, and you can see all the dust in the background still settling as Prio's on his way down towards the first chicane.
But he'd make a good rally driver. Off into the trees backwards, select first gear, carry on.
Okay, there is very light drizzles, Arnage from the radar, very light drizzle, Arnage from the radar.
Yeah, light drizzle, Arnage and Indy. That's to Andre Lotterer from his team. Arnage and Indy's at the far end of it. Tony Kanaan, Andy Prio's teammate, looking on. It looks like he was next in the car. Let's watch it through the S's. Comes out. And as he throws it, he's touched the grass on the left-hand side. So as he's thrown it in, he's trying to take a clean, quick line through Tete Rouge to get a good exit onto the straight. And you can see he's touched the grass with the left rear and spun it around, went in backwards, and then immediately into first gear and on his way again.
It's so dry, and the ground here is so sandy, even though we've had a lot of rain, and actually the car park's a quagmire, right by the edge of the track where it drains pretty well. Yeah, touch a wheel on there, and it might as well be ice.
Oh, bodywork,
double wave yellows, that's his radiator ducting.
How did that get there?
It's flown off the car as he's driven
but that's before the accident.
Yeah, but it's flown off when he's turned sideways and he was spinning, then the air's got underneath it and lifted the whole thing off.
Right. Oh, red flag. We've lost the session. We've stopped the session because we need to salvage the Porsche from Indianapolis
general
and now
house cleaning and
get the stuff off the racetrack.
Both sets of barriers can now be repaired as well. The problem is if you don't repair a barrier, it's already taken the energy hit.
Yeah, you can see that. I can be very frank with you, I've done exactly the same. And you're trying to take as much road on the outside to get the run through, because the speed down the Mulsanne is all about the way you enter up to the apex of it as opposed to anything else. And if you just kiss with your left rear, just kiss the dust and the grass there, then it just spins you around in an absolute heartbeat, and there's nothing you can do about it. Then you're just a passenger waiting on the impact.
Wilksey in the middle of your shot with his hand on the left ear to speak to Andy Prio, who's the crew chief down there.
The good news for them, and also for the Porsche that's in the barriers, is that nobody else is getting any running.
Is that it is a red flag?
Yes. So, yes, they're losing time. Yes, they're losing running, but they're not losing it to anybody else. So, effectively, you know, nobody else will even have got one more complete lap in while they were limping back, because the red flags are out and everybody's back in the garage.
But the clock is still ticking.
Yes.
So it's still a 2-hour session.
Well, that's
We're not held in suspended animation.
Well, that's because we have to hand the roads back to the public after midnight. We can't just carry on forever and ever.
Yeah, but it's also in a time session like this, they don't stop the clock. You let it run down, and that's the way it always has been at Le Mans and always will be.
We've got a great little view on board. You saw briefly on the driver's dashboard a little iPad or iPhone-sized thing that said red.
Puncture due to the accident, or puncture that sent you off? Well, it was an absolutely instant turnaround, instant spin, and it's saying front puncture.
Yeah, front puncture could have came from the fact of lockup. I think actually on this particular occasion I would sort of hazard a bit of an educated guess, having lived the experience once before, that it's probably from dropping the wheel on the outside as opposed to the puncture, and the puncture's a result of it. And
the thing of it is, you know, you're so convinced that you are absolutely right on the edge, but not over it, that until you go back and watch the video, you go, no, I could have sworn I was on terra firma.
Yeah, but the thing is, you're talking about maybe 20, 25 millimeters of gap across onto that at the speed of maybe 160 miles an hour.
Exactly.
And the other thing is, your eyes are also looking to the right-hand side, to the apex, not to the left, where the left-hand side of the car is. Yeah. And it's a real bit of precision there. It happens once, twice, every time we come to Le Mans, whether it be the pre-test or whether it be actual race itself.
So nobody improving on their time of last night. Mike Conway gets wheeled back into the Toyota garage. This session has been red flagged after we had an off with one of the Porsche GT cars at Indianapolis, and then a big off from Andy Prio with the Ford GT. He is limping back to the pits.
So you need to make a note in the incident book for health and safety. so that we can refer back to that later, and because so much goes on in these races, otherwise you go, when was that happened? So we have our own little health and safety incident book that we write everything down. We try and remember to write everything down in while we're getting overexcited about everything.
I hope my handwriting is good enough.
Yeah, I can't believe it wouldn't be. You just saw the second fastest car in LMP2, the number 28 TDS racing machine coming in, and there you see the two United Autosport cars stacked in what is a very busy pit lane. Starting 60 cars here at Le Mans. Let's hear from Louise Beckett down in the pit lane. Lou, it's quiet enough that we can probably hear you now. Where are you?
I'm at Toyota and just watching as the number 7s come in. I assumed there'd be a load of gravel coming out of the bottom of that car, but there doesn't seem to be anything. The guys are just assessing it all at the moment. There's a lot of guys all over this car, but they're not actually repairing anything just yet.
I think the red flag is as much for barrier repairs as because everybody was throwing their cars off. Doesn't seem to be any sign of rain at our end of the circuit, Lou, down in the pit lane or at the Ford chicane where we are, but you know, it could be throwing down buckets somewhere else, although the cameras would normally pick that up as well. So is it cooler?
It is cooler. There's a big black cloud overhead, but it doesn't, no rain so far, no rain in the pit lane.
Oh, right. Well, maybe it'll rain on Duncan when we get to the race. Who knows? You know, it only stays dry for the worthy, doesn't it? Louise Beckett in the pit lane. Duncan Vincent has arrived, and he'll be joining our coverage. Don't forget, if you watch, especially if you're watching us on the WC app, Louise and Duncan will be doing exclusive features for the app viewers. And so you can not only watch the race and listen to the commentary from start to finish, and also morning warm-up and the Road to Le Mans race on Saturday. But you can see a whole host of other behind-the-scenes features that they're doing exclusively for the app.
So, Alan, Andre Lotterer gets back into the Rebellion garage. He just put on those new tyres, as you said at the time, probably going for a bit of a good run. Meanwhile, let's listen.
Can you give me a small update on what Michael said? Because I couldn't hear it. Yeah, he said it was positive. He said, obviously, we were watching the run, so it was never a clear push as such. But he said, particularly through Porsche, definitely felt like the front was better. And he said that trend was in medium, in all corners. So generally, it seems like we've improved the front end, and he was quite happy. Okay, copy that. So with can you advise me something on brake balance? So I just start with the same and see where I go? Yeah, I would start with the same, and as you said, see how we go. We'll monitor it and try to treat this sprint as close to a race as possible. So we do the 14 laps, and then we'll try to help as best we can. Yeah, copy that.
Right, so we got it.
From your side, treat it like a race stint, knowing that there's likely that you'd have to reuse these tyres. So full race mode, and think about your braking.
Yeah, like do some when you get to the chicane. Kevin Estre there in the car on the radio to his engineer, got into the car when Michael Christensen brought it back in, and is now downloading Christensen's data from the engineer. What did he say? What about this? What about that? So that, you know, there's all that communication going on. Andy Priaulx still only just back at Arnage. Now, if you've got a puncture, the worst thing you can do is come in too quickly, Alan, because it works like a circular saw and just rips the car apart.
Yeah, just watch the Porsche coming through here. First touches that inside curb, sends him out wide, and then gets onto what is definitely not the grippier part of the circuit coming through there, certainly offline, and spins into the wall. Pretty heavy hit. There's Alex Brundle on the left-hand side and Oliver Rowland on the right, the two Ginetta drivers. And clearly Alex just with, yeah, it's just that difference here, but quite agitated, I would have said, by the comments and the way the feeling of the car is. But coming back to your point, yes, the worst thing you can do is come in too quickly, because the tyre starts to basically disintegrate, and then it becomes like a big belt, and that belt then starts whipping everything around and about it, including the suspension and also the bodywork, and creates a lot of damage. But there's also that point of the racing driver in you. When you've had a problem, you want to get back to the pits as quickly as possible.
Yeah, Andy Priaulx went off 8 minutes ago.
Yeah,
and he's still only at Arnage. It's a long lap. We all know that, Alan, but it's you know, that just shows you how careful he has to be.
Well, he's coming back
to not completely trash it.
Coming back at barely cycling speed, isn't he?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, and leisure cycling, not Peter Dumbreck winning races cycling.
There you can see the marks of where he's gone into the tyre wall, and it did its job. You saw the marshal walking off. He had his Ford cap on, and he also had a Ford rear wing as well. Not sure where that'll go, but I presume it'll go back to Ford, not onto his living room wall.
Or eBay. Let's check later in the evening.
Here you go again. Just see the left-hand side under the bridge. Just as he turns in. That's it. Yeah. It just pulls a tiny little bit into it as he's turned in. And you saw the front of the car moving very, very minimally, and then from the side you see it there with the dust that's being picked up. And Andy, once you're in that situation, you're just completely a passenger waiting on that impact and not sure what damage it's going to do.
And as you say, at those speeds, you're not looking at where the car is. You're looking as far around the corner as is humanly possible, because that's how you're getting the car around the corner. The car will follow the eyes, and you just know that it's in the right place. Just occasionally it's not. Cooper McNeil having a chat through the door of the WeatherTech Porsche. Look, see the little sign where it says red on the dashboard there through the nets, through the safety netting? That's the system that tells the drivers, repeats flag signals to the drivers. Race Director can send messages to the individual driver of a car to warn him that he's exceeding track limits or something else.
So he did say on the radio front right.
He's right.
That didn't hit anything in the accident.
Yeah, but remember, he's got his foot hard on the brakes all the way through.
He spun at 100.
Might have flat spotted it through.
Spin at 140 miles an hour.
Yeah, but the damage here to the back is the floor, it's the bodywork, probably the exhausts, it is the rear wing, the engine cover, plus also the 4 tyres. But it's a significant amount of damage that's actually been impacted in there.
Louise Beckett, what you say? What you say?
I say very light rain in the pit lane. It's very light, but there is a little bit of a drizzle. That's what I'd call it.
Okay. Right, I'm going to put the kettle on.
So as Andy Priaulx limps it back to the pits, the Porsche curves into Indianapolis. That's getting repaired. You can see a couple of drops on the camera down there. In the pits, at this end of the pits, at the Toyota end, that's at the podium end. You'll see it just there. Who will be on top of that podium come Sunday afternoon, 3:30, 4:45 or so, as Andy is just coming past our commentary position about now, coming down pit lane, limping in. You can hear it knocking away, and that was an 11-minute lap of Le Mans for Andy Priaulx. Now he comes in. So then, the red flag, how long will it be? Well, in the meantime, Louise is down there in the pits. Over to you, Lou.
Yes, I'm with the number 35, sorry, Norman Nato. You've just come back, car's back in the garage. You all right, first of all?
Well, yeah, I'm all right. Like, small mistake from my side. I was quite on a good lap. I was a good improvement compared to yesterday, and I was following an LMP2 slower, so I got dirtier. And, well, it's qualifying, so I tried to do my best, and I made a small mistake. I just spun and came back in the box.
At around 1930, we may be able to resume.
Okay, 2.5 minutes to go before we get a green flag here. And that is going to need all of the experience of all of the boys. Okay, sorry, Louise. Okay, we'll get back to her in a minute. A lot of work to be done down there by the Multimatic boys. Here we have another angle of Andy Priaulx having that off. Boom, in you go.
Yeah, it's just, you know, probably less than a third of the tyre, and that's Nato, as we saw. Lost the rear as he came through, and then nearly took out one of his SMP teammates going through. And this is Conway going off, locking up both fronts as he's recuperating into the Dunlop chicane, then going straight over the gravel. That's very early on. And there was quite a lot of action in this session. Considering we're only 30 minutes in, we've already had, you know, 2 people in the barrier and 2 big spins and lockups.
And this was the 94 car, the Porsche going in. Sven Muller going backwards into the barrier. The barrier is damaged there, and then boom, into the side of that tyre wall. Yeah, that's big off, as you said at the time, Alan.
Yeah, it is, and this is the one that the 4 guys will be on, looking to see what extra damage. I don't think there's anything structurally in terms of the actual chassis itself. It's more a case of the bodywork and, like I say, exhausts and a few things like that just being crushed forward. Sebastian Buemi, no such problems for him. He's out of the car. It's his teammate Fernando Alonso that was sitting in the car right now. And Buemi just going across to have a wee chat. Ferrari's sitting in the pit lane. This is to be honest with you, Toby, this I find quite a frustrating time, because you were waiting on the track going green, but also you were sitting there knowing that it was probably the best time was going off the track, because it was the rain and drizzle was starting to come in. And so there's a certain amount of frustration, because you pumped yourself up since last night. The adrenaline surging through, and you just want to get out there like a caged lion in a way, and you want to get on with it, but you're not able to.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're scrolling through the drivers. Lotterer, Riquelme, here's Nico Lapierre. You know, he was on for a hot lap. You know, you'd always put your money on him out of this trio in this car with the Signatech Alpine. Former LMP2 victor of the Le Mans 24 Hours couple 3 years ago or so with the KCMG car. Mike Conway, he is in the car. Let's listen.
I'm waiting for the weather to see what's going on. Obviously, they will anticipate the change with going to lower downforce level. We don't expect raindrops anymore. Like just from the data, what we see is you brake in the same place with the same amount. Just slightly later, let's say, to the corner. Just the only difference we see is the brake temperature. So maybe the bite was a bit different, and maybe some drops as well. Okay. Yeah, but it was quite high bite from the start of the session with these brakes. But I thought it was just because they were cold, yeah. But you know what you know that will weather do as well sometimes.
Yeah, normally, talking about brakes and brake temperatures, in my experience, you get them up to temperature very quickly by the time you've already gone through Tetra Rouge, because you stamp on them. Tyres are already preheated coming out of ovens, and so therefore you have instantaneous grip, and that allows you to put high brake temperatures into it. But what the engineer was saying is look through the data why Conway locked up and ran through the gravel at the Dunlop chicane. A little bit of an odd line in terms of slightly later, and then just maybe a mismatch front to rear temperatures, but then shift the balance effectively towards the front in a lockup.
So not much changing, of course, from 24 hours ago with regards to how the grid is going to line up by the time the green flag will drop at 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon here at the Circuit de la Sarthe for the 2018 Le Mans 24 Hours. Let's just have a look at the lap time that's the current pole position of the LMP2 category, a 3:24.9. Let's call it a high 24. Audi 2011. 3:25.7 as a pole position. You know, these LMP2 cars, I know I'm looking back at an LMP1 car, Alan, from 7-8 years ago, and particularly in the World Endurance Championship, the technology has romped along in those 6, 7, 8 years. But that's as quick as you were in 2011. That's quite something for an over-the-shelf customer car in LMP2. It's quite something.
Issue with concrete walls at Indianapolis. It's being a little bit more complicated than originally we expected. It will take a few minutes more. They are doing their best, and I will keep you posted on to an estimated time of resuming the session.
That's Eduardo Freitas just giving us, and also more importantly all of the teams, just the information of how long this is going to be. But yeah, coming back to, there's been a big development with LMP2, but just remember, you know, I'm an old man now in 2011, you know, we get tired these things. Yeah. But no, they've evolved the regulations, and so from the last 2 years, then they've had probably about 100 horsepower increase in LMP2, and round here that makes a heck of a difference. But the lap times they are doing are 3:25. When we first came here in 2006, that was the simulated absolute pole position. With the R10 at the time, and so the lap times have evolved as the regulations have allowed you to exploit certain things and then brought you back again.
Yeah, they made the holes in the top of the wheel arches to try and keep you with to not go completely mad. I mean, if you went round here with a Porsche 919, the current what do they call it, the Tribute car that's sort of unrestricted, would that do a 259.999?
Nah, I really don't know. I know that in terms of that, if you let it absolutely open, then you would have a situation where the circuit would have to be reconfigured completely due to safety. So hence the reason that they're always trying to tune in and do these things. But one guy that isn't thinking about that, this man, Juan Pablo Montoya, first time here, and he has won the Monaco Grand Prix, and he's also won the Indy 500. He's an LMP2 with United Autosports. He just thinks it's a brilliant place. Loves it, loves the race, loves the whole idea of it, and the circuit for him is certainly one that he enjoys being at.
Totally, and it's great to have him here. Two-time an Indy 500 winner back in 2000, and only 3 years ago in 2015. As you say, won Monaco, won Daytona as well, the 24-hour race there. His debut here at Le Mans. Is there an LMP1 future for JPM? Probably yes. Let's see how it all unfolds. There's a press conference taking place tomorrow outlining the future of World Endurance Championship racing. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of that.
Okay, information to the pit lane, because we do need drivers to make some laps still. We're going to resume the session, leaving the slow zone active from post 20 to post 26. The repairs will still take some more time. We give you some track time, but we're going to go green, taking into consideration the fact that the slow zone will be in position.
Well, basically what they're saying is that they're still going to be working in this area, but you can't go more than 80 kilometers an hour through that. And so therefore, to give some guys the mileage and the laps, they want laps for various different things. Can't learn very much in the pits. And so therefore they're opening up the track again, as you can see on the graphic though, from Mulsanne all the way down to Arnage through Indianapolis, where that accident happened. Then it will be 80 kilometers per hour.
So Alonso got out of the car. He's got to get back in the car pretty pronto. So as Alonso gets back in, that is the car that is still on pole position after the time set yesterday. Still on pole, ahead of its teammate by 1/10 of a second. Now, we were mentioning Juan Pablo Montoya a moment ago, but Louise has got JPM down there in the pits. Louise?
Yes, I certainly have. So, Juan Pablo Montoya, Le Mans, how is it so far?
It's been good, you know, a little challenging, but good. I think the track is amazing, and, you know, the whole experience has been really, really cool.
The car's in at the moment. What are they working on?
I think we're betting the race brakes right now, and they were going to do a quali run, but they awarded it because I think there's some yellow zones, so they decided to put the practice brakes back on now.
And for you, these qualifying sessions, you good with them, or do you just want to get racing now?
To be honest with you, the main focus is really race. You know, more than anything, make sure we got a good car for the race and good consistent car. So I think our focus at the moment is really just long runs and see what the car can do.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think reality is that they're not going to be in with a chance of pole position anyway. I would suggest that's more than likely going to go to one of the Orica chassis, and so therefore a bit of a focus on the race itself is the right thing for them to do. But
that tends to be the way, isn't it? We know we're not going to get pole, therefore obviously we'll focus on the race. However, racing drivers do like to have a bit of a crack, don't they?
Yeah, when you put on a new set of tyres, you clearly don't go out there to do a slower lap time. You know, that's against your religious principles. And so therefore you just get out and get stuck in and see what your car can do. And that's also something for the mechanics as well. Gives them a bit of a lift. You know, those guys have been working tremendously hard. They'll have done an engine change either overnight or through today before they get in today. So the race engine will be in the car now. And so therefore it's a little bit of a lift for those guys as suddenly see their driver giving it one. And the lap time popping up there and it going purple or blue, which purple means it's the fastest overall sector or lap, and blue means it's the car's best sector or lap. And they like to see that as much as the driver does.
Yeah, the mechanics love to see the cars getting a good thrashing. If the driver's giving it big licks, then they're all smiles. One red light on the side, two red lights on the side, number 7 Toyota. Red indicating it's an LMP1 car, and 1 and 2 indicating what position it is in the class. Paul di Resta on the right. Is this his first Le Mans?
Spin by number 7 just straight out the pits, and he's looped it around. We saw the rebellion actually getting a little bit out of shape there on the outlap, and Conway, as you say, has just looped it around in a little bit of a slow speed, lazy spin, I'm sure.
The other man in the shot was Felipe Albuquerque, who's done a lot of endurance racing and been here a few times, but he's the experienced one with 2 rookies in that car.
Here we go. As Conway's come into the left-hander, and it's just this point there, touches the curb, and lazy.
That is, that defines lazy spin, doesn't it?
There?
Well,
Rob Loipen in the background with the goatee beard. We said it yesterday when they got a penalty for refueling with the car on the trolleys instead of on its tyres or on the axle stands. Stop making silly errors.
tyres very cold. You know, they've basically been taken off the car because of that stop. They've been taken off the car and put into the ovens. And if it was a slow in-lap, then the chances are they wouldn't have had the temperature into them. And when the tyre, when we're talking about that, when it's not in its actual working window, the tyre is like ice, and it just sort of judders across the top of the road. And once you start to lose the edge of the tyre, and as in the edge of the grip, you just never get it back in these things. And the momentum of 875 kilos takes over, and you loop around.
So the tyres are coming out of the oven at sort of 75, 80. By the time you get to the end of the pit lane, they've got to be 55, 60.
No, they'll be a little bit higher than that. No? But if they didn't go in, as you can see, the rebellion there of Andre Lotterer just wiggling going into Dunlop where Conway lost it. So that probably suggests to me it's not just necessarily tyres that are a bit cold, but also that might be a little bit damp up there.
Well, I was just out the back of the booth, and there is a little bit of mist in the rain, misting rain in the air. It's not actual rain. It's not enough to make you wet, but you can feel the moisture on your face.
Yeah. Lotterer 32.577 through the first sector, just to give you a bit of an idea. 31.0 was the quickest lap time through there yesterday, and that's the first sector from the start and finish line to Tetra Rouge.
Slow zone 6.
Slow zone 6.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slow zone 6 has been removed. Slow zone 6 has been removed.
Oh, another one. Did he get away with it?
The extra downforce that the P car has there, Alan, is what saved him. He kicked up almost as much dirt as Andy Priaulx, but maybe not quite as much.
To be honest, I don't think he actually went off the circuit. I think he was driving over the guy that's been off the circuit just before him. Yeah. And so that was certainly... It is a little bit risky. You've got to be careful, and very careful that you don't turn in when you're running over that dust coming into Tetra Rouge.
Well, new boy to the Dragon Speed team, Renger van der Zande replacing Pietro Fittipaldi, who crashed in qualifying at Spa. He's down with Louise Beckett.
Renger, you've just said that all of these issues have meant that the number 10 hasn't really gone out much so far in this session, but tell us what happened yesterday.
I mean, I went out yesterday and for the first few laps in the night, and I ran out of the pits, and the right wheel was an issue. There was an issue on the bodywork and the wheel. They were touching. So I decided to park the car, and that was the end of the session, because obviously if you're making a red flag or a yellow flag in qualifying, you're not allowed to rejoin the session. So that was the end of the session. So I'll do my 5 night driving laps in the night tonight, and then we're fine. So no big issues, no motors, no nothing, just a little tire touching bodywork.
But you had a nice lap of the track this morning at 6 o'clock when you were part of the running gang.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of crazy. We woke up really early, and it was really fun. Tom Christensen was there, Alan McNeish, Ulrich, a lot of Audi boys now I say it, but no, it was fun. It was a good lap. I went for the track record on the bike, so I think I got it.
And I think you're probably eager to get out tonight then.
Yeah, I mean, the real stuff starts now, and I didn't do too much laps on this track yet so far, not in the test day, not now. So I'm eager to get some laps in.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Louise.
All I can say was that Renger was a little bit slower than I was on the cycle. Actually, it wasn't. I was on a mountain bike with Dr. Ulrich, my long-time boss at Audi, and it was also Pierre Fillon, the president of the Automobile Club de l'Ouest, was leading the running charge at 6 a.m. this morning. Beautiful, absolutely stunning and beautiful as the sun was rising as we were coming down through the Dunlop and the S's onto the...
Watch out, turn 2 reported to be slippery, turn 2 reported to be slippery.
There's Alonso now coming down into Mulsanne corner, so the other end of the circuit, turn 2's Dunlop. That's where we saw Conway going a little bit wide and having that lazy spin, and also Andre Lotterer having a bit of a wiggle, and the same of Porsche just having to cut across the apex of the second part of the chicane.
And Toad, while we were listening to Renger van der Zande with Louise, we saw the shots in the garage of a very famous face. Why is Adrian Newey in a garage? Why is he in a Russian garage?
Well, his son driving at Le Mans for the first time. Adrian Newey knows about Le Mans, drove here 2007 off the top of my head in a Ferrari in the GT class. That's a pub quiz killer one, that one, isn't it? Did Adrian Newey drive at Le Mans? Yes, and also in the Classic. He had that off, of course, in his nice GT4 team.
Yes.
He was okay at the second chicane, should I say. But no, good to see him here. He loves motorsport. You know that. He's worked in America. He's done his endurance stuff, and of course made his mark in Formula One, maybe like no one else ever will.
We interviewed him in the scrutineering in the paysage in the centre of town. We got all the teams up on the stage when we were covering there, and said to him, you know, why are you racing at Le Mans? Why aren't you just doing the historic stuff? And he said, well, you know, I'm a frustrated racing driver. That's why I sort of got into racing. I ended up being quite good at the designing thing instead. There's Adrian Newey. His son Harrison is racing for the SMP team. That's the deal. And he said, they won't let me race in the Monaco Grand Prix. They won't let me race the Indy 500, but they'll let me race here, and so I am. And that is the most perfect answer of why on earth a gentleman who can afford to and is passionate enough about it would want to be doing this, because they allow you to. And that's the great thing about this. Always has been, and hopefully always will be, somewhere where not just pros but amateurs and juniors rising up the ranks can come and race as well.
Yeah, and exactly. And you have to obviously get to a certain level, get your license signed, jump through those hoops, but those hoops are higher to go through if you needed to get to Wimbledon or the Olympics, and you know about that, Martin. Whereas here, you know, pop star drummers can go and race. Nick Mason, Hollywood superstars, Patrick Dempsey,
Wee Scots,
Wee Scots from exactly. So
Scotland, from Dumfries. Exactly right.
So, you know, it's that opening which is just wonderful. A friend of ours, Richard Hay, has driven here, and you just think. And I always say to my friends, if I won a gazillion pounds in the lottery that I don't enter, I'd have a crack at it.
Yeah.
I'd have a crack at it. Alan, can you imagine the team? Can you imagine the difference in the seats between you, Martin, and Alan?
Can you imagine us driving and him managing? Now, there's Alex Brundle on the left, Father Martin on the right, not just here as a dad.
No.
He's racing as well. He'll be in the Aston Martin support race on Saturday morning. Yeah.
Sky-sponsored car. 1990 Jaguar winner?
Yes. And raced for Toyota as well. Tried to win the race with Toyota as well.
Had a puncture late on with the GT1 car.
Yeah. Oh, that was a big lose. That wasn't him in the car, was it? Who was in the car?
It was him in the car. No, Boutsen was my teammate. That was into Dunlop when he got tagged. Martin had a puncture into he basically had a problem into the first chicane, and then didn't quite get it back with the damage.
And who had one all right down at the far end of the Mulsanne at absolute maximum speed? Again, it was another leading Reds GT1.
No, it wasn't. That was Martin. That was Martin. It was into
one of the Japanese drivers.
No, that was because he got tagged. Katayama. And it's because he got tagged by Bashir in the BMW, which was, funnily enough, the sister BMW was the one they were fighting for the lead.
And this is the 20th time that Toyota will have come to Le Mans to try and win the race.
Really?
20th time, yeah. And you know, and the thing for Toyota and for Nissan and everybody else is that Japan's minnow manufacturer, Mazda, is the one that's won. Ollie Rowland skating through there underneath the TDS car.
With the engine that no one would ever think would have won Le Mans.
Yeah.
Is that the Prio car mended? Yes, it is. It's out. Well done, Multimatic boys. Fair play. I take my hat off. That was as you said, Martin, it was bodywork rather than major structural, but even so, you've got to make sure that the connectors are right for the rear lights. If those lights aren't working, you are straight in and Freitas is all over you and everything. So they're back on track.
Think if that was a race, that incident and then the response time of those mechanics, that's where they actually make their money, is by being able to react to situations like that, because you don't know what's coming up, but you know something will come up, and that can be the difference between actually recovery and winning or not.
That was a 30-minute from when Andy hit the barrier to now it's back out on track.
Yeah, and including getting back in, which was a 10-minute in-lap. And that's the difference, you know, that professional teams like Audi really up the game. Audi up the game so much in being prepared to repair things that broke. Because you can't build a car that a driver can't crash, and you can't build a car that a crashing driver can't wreck. So you have to assume that there are things you're going to have to fix. You know, the whole rear end replacement, the 2-minute 30 replacement of an entire rear end, suspension, wings, and of course, critically, gearbox, before it was outlawed that you could replace the entire gearbox.
Remember what they did with the DTM in the mid-90s? They just changed an engine in between races, just the whole front end, and somebody said, hang on a minute, the budget's running away.
Yeah.
And that was 5 minutes to change an engine.
Yeah.
As you can see, the clouds, though.
Yeah, but in my Haynes manual, it takes 5 minutes to read the instructions for changing an engine. Surely that's all it takes.
That was just to boil the kettle, Martin.
66 heading out, one of the fleet of Fords. This is the fleetest of the fleet of Fords. Stefan Mucker brought the car in, and we'll wait as he goes out of the pit lane to see whether it is him taking it back out. Shares with Ollie Pla and Billy Johnson. And they are in third place in the GTE Pro class. Green lights, green number backdrop for the Pro class. And the 66 car has green highlights on the mirrors and on the windscreen as well. So there you see it coming towards you. That just denotes to the team which of their 4 cars it is. Happens to work for us as well, if we remember these things.
A green, a blue, a red, and a yellow.
Yeah, and there's Baby Brundle, all suited up and ready to go.
Has he done a lap here yet?
Yes, because judging by his hand gestures, he wasn't just watching. Looping rounds, that is the 90 Aston Martin TF Sport. And the car that won in Silverstone last weekend, I saw coming in on a flatbed earlier today. Marco Sorensen, Nicky Thiem rather, won at Silverstone in the 500 with Mark Farmer in a TF Sport car.
Fritz Enzinger in the garage for Porsche GT, the man who masterminded the victories over the last 3 years outright for the LMP1 hybrid Porsche 919.
Yeah, and now is head of Group Motorsport for Volkswagen. And so in charge of all of the brands in terms of trying to coordinate that quite large group in reality.
So he's your boss's boss's boss.
Yeah, in terms of the group side of things, yes. And he obviously has still got very strong, passionate links to Porsche in this race as well. It's slippery. Sorry to jump in there. Just looking at the 28 car here, sliding its way down through the S's as well. The track isn't in good condition, and it's, well, that's the TDS car of Mathieu Vaxavi at this moment in time.
But pole position yesterday, 3:17.27. We've just had a 3:18 flat. We're within 3/4 of a second of the pole position time from 24 hours ago. If I could just throw that to the floor, Mr. McNish.
And I'll just throw something else to the floor. But I think that was that wasn't the fastest lap that Toyota could have done. I think there was definitely a significantly quicker lap time in there, and also the track has now had a couple of other races on it, and so therefore it should be in a better position than where we are right now.
Absolutely right. Looking in the AM class, so all the road car based categories, the supercar based categories, the GTE class, we have pros and we have AMs. AMs is a slight misnomer because it's a Pro-Am category. 88 Dempsey Proton car, which has got this World War I disruptive pattern, black and grey. The 77 car has got sky blue in there as well in its disruptive pattern. And that's Khaled El Khabaisi in the 88. And that's a big moment again. And that's the 37 Jackie Chan DC Racing car, one of their 2 regular WEC cars. Name the names. Who was in that, Tone?
That's the Malaysian car. Jafar is in there.
Jafar.
So
very quickly, feedback, please. not what we need. It's completely the opposite, actually. What we need is made the rear stability worse. The car is lifting up a lot on the rear. No confidence to go into the corners. I think actually turn in because the rear is lifting. The car is searching a lot or very pointy all the time, so I lost a lot of confidence.
Yeah, basically Andre Lotterer there, when he says the rear is lifting, that means in the braking areas he's starting to transition to turn in. The rear is high and light, and it means that he's unstable. He doesn't have the confidence to throw the front of the car in. So when he does turn the steering wheel, it reacts too quickly for him, and it just loses your confidence. And with an average speed, oh my goodness, that's a Porsche there just not really aware the BMW was still trying to come through after he had avoided the inside of the curb there. Yeah, Lotterer struggling a little bit with the balance, and I think that's the worst thing for the engineer to hear. It's exactly the opposite of what we need. He thought he had solved something, but he had actually created more of a problem.
He made it less better.
Oh, the Gulf at Porsche. Ooh. The Gulf Porsche has had a moment, so that's Matt Wainwright at the top of the hill. A lot of people having problems at that corner, on the way in the middle, on the way out now.
Well, Mike Wainwright spun there yesterday, got 3/4 of the way around and looped it round on the exit, and that looks like it's exactly what's happened again. See a little bit of bodywork there, right in the centre of the blue line.
Flappy cone, though, and that's a flappy cone.
Might be a flappy thing. Yeah.
I think it is, but it's an odd place to get to be honest.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
And looks like he's bedded in there, so it'll be a grab that comes to lift him up. Hence the slow zone. That's a bit of a problem right now with tyre temperatures dropping in this area, especially if it is a long slow zone. So it's from the Ford chicane before the start and finish line all the way up the start and finish straight through Dunlop, and then until they're past that incident before they can accelerate back up from 80.
You saw a wry smile from his teammate Ben Barker. He's the man who set the 3rd fastest time in GTE AM yesterday evening.
Sorry, there was a green flag there, and the 28 from Vaxivi is still doing 80 kilometers per hour at the top of the hill, the green flag, so he should have been able to release the 80 kilometer limit and then basically get back to racing speed, but he's not for whatever reason.
Yeah, and that does occasionally happen, doesn't it? Sometimes the speed limiter doesn't come back off. And again, electronics is so seldom your friend when they go adrift, because you can't see where it's leaking. There's the Gulf crew. Looks like no damage to the car. It's been lifted away, but we've got an hour and 3 minutes, so frankly, they could really do with it coming back.
Darth Vader in the background there, all helmeted up.
Down at BMW Motorsport, getting ready for a driver change. Antonio Felix da Costa, quite a Portuguese-speaking crew on that car.
Yeah, and there's a Portuguese crew just out of the first chicane on the left-hand side for the marshals as well. So I'm sure they'll be waving on their guys. This is, I think, da Costa's first time here at Le Mans.
Yes.
For BMW, they've got quite a driver roster, but I would say in terms of driver roster with Le Mans experience, and they're going to be gaining a lot of it coming through this 24-hour race.
Yeah, they're pretty inexperienced at the moment. By the way, talking about the men and women in orange, 1,610 marshals here from 20 different nationalities, including India, 1, Russia, Australia, United Arab Emirates, Ukraine, 16 from Portugal, 1 from Luxembourg, from Canada, from the USA, Czech Republic, Belgium, Germany, Great Britain, Italy, Hungary, the Netherlands, Denmark, Spain, Switzerland, and Monaco.
Yeah, and
without whom?
Just say that without whom there is absolutely none. And we met a couple of them out when we were looking at the Porsche cars. A very, very tall Dutch chap who
There is no other kind of Dutch chap, is there?
Exactly.
Especially from your viewpoint.
And the Monaco one is actually one of my neighbours.
Yes. No, in all seriousness, and in fact, one of the there's a whole bunch of English marshals come out on a very regular basis here.
quite surprised that Patrick Long made that cut across the front of the BMW, because it was Long at the helm at that point. So let's hope that that was just a bit of a whoa, what's going on with the LMP2 car. They did make contact, actually. You couldn't see it from the outside shot, but from the onboard, you could see that Stuttgart was touching Munich there. So all is well.
Stuttgart was biffing Munich,
yes.
if you ask me.
And I'm guessing that this was the car that took the hit. Yeah.
I heard. Confirm. Any damage? Question? I think the flat front right are gone, but car is good so far. Copy.
Wow, I recognise that voice. He was an engineer on the Audi team, and he came from Sauber to us, and then he went to BMW, and he always said, when he said something, he would say the question, and it was the intonation, 100%. So good to see him. He's a Dutchman, by the way, as well.
The new 8 Series BMW being launched to the public here in the public area tomorrow evening, so there's a bit of a view for everybody out in the grandstands. Still the 2 Toyotas, first and second here at Le Mans, with their times of just 24 hours ago. The SMP Racing number 17 is third on the grid from the number 1 Rebellion, from the number 3 Rebellion. 6th overall is the Dragon Speed, then 7th is the SMP car, the number 11 car with Button in it. Then they have the Bicolis car in 8th position. Then we've got the first of the LMP2s. Let's have a quick rundown on screen. Nothing really changed from, as I say, 24 hours ago. Toyota's the pole position for the taking. To that gap, 2.2 seconds, and then it's a bit close. Then you get into the blues of the LMP2s, the IDEC Sport car, then the TDS Racing LMP2 car, first and second. Not much between them, as you can see. The red is the number 5 Ginetta, so then it's third in class for the 26G drive, the familiar orange of the number 26. Whole fleet of LMP2 cars filling out the majority of this 60-car grid that we've got here for Le Mans 2018. Then we get into the GTE Pros, Porsche dominating 1 and 2 after their scintillating laps yesterday ahead of the 2 Fords, etc., with the 2 Porsches first and second. That's number 88 and number 77 in the GTE AM class, going all the way down to the number 90 TF Sport Aston Martin, and bringing up the rear of the fields. A lot of work to do for some people, though. We've had an off at Indianapolis. Somebody's rolled on.
Looks like the Ginetta or the Algarve Pro.
It is the Ginetta, the number 5 car. That has got Charlie Robertson at the wheel, and he's just run on, and you try and turn, I imagine, Alan, you're on the gravel, you're trying to turn, because that tyre wall is actually quite close.
Well, too close for Charlie's thoughts, obviously. I'm not sure what's happened there. It looks like that's the marks for the Porsche that went in earlier on in the session, straight on. And as you can see, the Manitou is coming around to grab the LMP1 and lift it out. But they struggled yesterday. They had an electrical problem on the out lap at the beginning of the first session, and only got to Tertre before it actually stopped. And it took them a long time to get the car back. And so from this point of view, running is the thing that they really need. At the moment, 11th quickest, which is basically behind a couple of LMP2 cars, and the other car, the sister car, is 18th overall. So for both of the Ginettas, then they just need laps.
They had an engine change on the other Ginetta yesterday as well. So as you say, they need the miles, they need the reliability, but it can turn around, and a lot of people hoping that will happen.
And it looks like it was an out lap as well, because Charlie Robertson, I think, has been in the pits. And so it was an out lap when he had gone off there. I'm not sure. It could be down to drizzle, because there's been a few people that I didn't expect, and I wouldn't have expected, to be honest, Charlie in that situation, that have had an excursion that, not necessarily the most logical. Next slow, that's coming down into Mulsanne corner.
So it's from Mulsanne all the way up to Indianapolis. It's slow zone number 6 all the way through to
now, watch it
Marshall's
change.
Point
watch
number
it change.
21.
In the slow zone now, it shows slow, and when Eduardo Freitas counts us down to green, or he gets out of the slow zone at the marshal's post that denominates the end of the slow zone, that will turn to green. If you're being caught by a faster car, the blue flags will be copied into your display. Eduardo can send a message to all of the drivers in some cars, all of the teams, or one specific driver. He can tell a driver, track limits, turn 7.
Okay, but I start to have more and more others here, into exits.
Well, a little bit of more and more understeer for the 92 Porsche, and that might just be some of the muck that is picking up on the track, or alternatively, if it's starting to clean up a little bit, he's getting more rear grip and a little bit less front as a result. Louise down in the pits, just about to catch up with Paul-Luc Chatin.
Yeah, Paul-Luc Chatin is just about to get ready to get into the car. The IDEC Sport number 48 is fastest at the moment. How's it going for you? Obviously well.
Yeah, for the moment everything is okay, you know. We had the luck yesterday to do the best lap time in LMP2, so we'll try to improve it today. The track looks very fast for this second qualifying session, so let's see what we'll be able to do. But for sure, the other car, other team, we will try to push on to beat us. So I think, you know, it will be a nice qualifying, and we enjoy when cars are close like that. But of course, we don't have to forget our target is to work for the race, and this is the main important.
Okay, thank you. I'll let you get ready.
Thank you, Louise. That is the CCTV of the Ginetta number 5, Charlie Robertson, being dragged out of the gravel by the Manitou. They can pick up a house, those things. Now he gets on his way up towards Arnage and hopefully back to the pits if he needs it.
Well, now that's good news, because it has all the hallmarks of it just being a driver error, and therefore hopefully no damage, no long-term delays for him. Fred Makovici being given chapter and verse in the Porsche garage before he gets into his car, and we've swapped our Scots over as well. We've fired Alan McNish out, and
Swap a Scott.
And so Simon Strang, the PR man for Aston Martin, told us he had nothing to report. I said, come on, Strangy, otherwise all we're going to hear is how Peter Dumbreck is on pole in an Aston Martin. That's be all our Aston Martin content, and no one needs that.
To be fair to Peter Dumbreck, in between the pair of us, Martin, we need to tell the world that he's on pole position, because he's too humble to say it himself. So well done. How was it out there? 830 horsepower underneath your right foot.
Good. Yeah, lots of fun to drive around here. It's been a while since I attacked this track in anger, so yeah, really good fun. Not much time, you know. These guys obviously get the longer periods, the more testing, practice, qualifying. For us, very short periods. Had a few red flags during it. And it was a case of just try and get a clear lap and just try and bang one. So basically lap one. Actually, lap one was red flag.
I know, we were watching. We were cheering you on.
And then it went green again, and I was able to get one clear lap before getting traffic on lap 2. And then I just handed the car over to Chris Harris, who incidentally did a fantastic job. Super fast on used tyres. I think he's done a couple of races here in support races before.
Yes, did a historic race.
Drove Lister Nobly a couple of years ago.
He did, the ex.
Which is the perfect preparation for a Vulcan.
Yeah, so, you know, it's all going well for us, and yeah, we've got the race on Saturday, so a bit of chill out time now. Day off tomorrow, we'll maybe go to the parade, and then race in the morning, and then into the box in the afternoon.
Yeah. Well, the Porsche LMP1 guys of old have come back to support their colleagues in the GT garages. So good to see that the team camaraderie and the draw of Le Mans, as always, is there.
Well, it's not just for us, and it's not just for racing drivers, it's for the mechanics as well. You know, Hugh Chamberlain was outside, who's been coming here as a team boss and before that as a racing driver for 40-odd years, 50 years. You know, Henri Pescarolo started the race as a driver 33 times. Missed one consecutive because he had a crash in testing a Formula 1 car and got badly burnt and couldn't race, and then started coming back as a team owner. You know, and he's been coming back every year, you know, as a guest and as a commentator. And, you know, it is something that just gets under your skin and is very hard to resist.
When you get your calendars, you know what it's like, guys. You get your calendars for the year ahead and you go, can I do Le Mans? Can I do Le Mans? Does it clash with anything? Hopefully not.
Yeah.
Can I do...
Well, for us, it's more, how can I do Le Mans?
Yeah.
Who can I con this time to get me to come in?
Might the phone ring?
And you know, it's interesting. I was just talking to some of the guys in the other commentary booths around here, and you know, a lot of the journalists you see year in and year out working for different people, different PR people. Oh, it's like drivers. You know, you're in a different shirt to the one you were in the year before, but you know, you still come back, and that knowledge. And, you know, especially for drivers, the knowledge and the experience here, Peter, counts for so much, doesn't it? You know, it's not enough just to be quick. You've got to avoid all the other stuff that can slow you down, and so much of that comes with experience.
Well, it's an endurance race. It's turned into a 24-hour sprint race, as I'm sure has been mentioned in the box over the last few hours anyway. But, you know, these cars generally are so reliable now, or the majority of them are.
Oh,
he's really taking those curbs heavily.
What do you expect?
That's a bit too much.
In front of us.
That's a bit too much.
Oh, look at that.
How was his lap looking until that point?
He was looking...
That's Nico Lapierre, and it was not a personal best. It wasn't a personal best. It was a...
Yeah, so it's a strange one. Again, a lot of experience right here, and his car's
suspension broken as he hit that big red sausage on the inside. It's not there.
It's just taking way too much curb.
Watch the red sausage.
Oh, yeah,
you where it lands off there, that's where he's broken the suspension.
It broke on the way up.
And you know what? If you hit not the big curbs, if you hit the small curbs consistently enough, you are going to break the suspension.
Yeah, I mean, it's designed to stop you doing that. There was a day when, in fact, I remember back in 2013, last time, where it was flatter curbs, and we were going right over the top of them. Yeah. But now it's impossible to do it.
You straddle that, you leave your engine behind, basically, whether you're front-engined, rear-engined, or whatever.
Well, the Aston Martin in the test day lost an engine because it hit a curb, because it had to take avoiding action.
I was talking to Alan yesterday about hybrids and how they hated curb strikes, particularly not the Toyota's discharged battery so much, but particularly the flywheel, because the tolerances were so tiny between the moving mass and the container. If you hit a curb too hard, everything would fire off. It would shut down instantly, and then you had to do the hard reset. And so for all of that, but the suspension takes such a beating if you're ramping it over the curbs. And that was a very un-Nico Lapierre attack of the first chicane, never mind the second one.
I was thinking that, you know, this driver's got a lot of experience around here, very fast. He won in P2 2 years ago?
2015.
And you know, I'm a little bit surprised about that. And considering it is a lap that wasn't really that good, it could be the frustration. Maybe he's not as quick as, or the car is not as quick as he wants it to be, and frustration is coming through, and he's just trying to bully it. But yeah, bit him back there.
Well, there goes the 67 Ford that Andy Priaulx got spat off the track with early on, wrecked the back ends. They sent it back out after about a 20-minute rebuild. And have we had a driver change in there? I would think we probably have. No, Andy Priaulx still shown as at the wheel, so the Guernsey donkey getting plenty of miles. That's not an insult, that's a fact. That's what they like to call themselves. And wife Jo, racing son Seb will be here as well. He's already started his racing career. He's raced in karts, raced in Ginetta Juniors, and daughter Danny. So looking forward to catching up for them. Haven't seen them since World Touring Car days, and that's half their lives ago, pretty much. Out of Tertre Rouge onto the Mulsanne Straight. Yellow flags are out at 32, which is midway through the Porsche curves. In fact, that's the first left in the Porsche curve for Peter's reference. Right, and slow zone also at zone 9, that's the last.
Yeah, after Lapierre,
yeah.
Oh, the gravel's still on the track there.
Yeah.
Putting hundreds of thousands all over the tarmac.
Yeah. So then they're released from that, they go green, and away they go. So the zone ends at the start-finish line, following one of the Jackie Chan DC racing cars. How much is aerodynamic downforce in the wake of a car in front an issue in the prototypes, do you think, these days?
It's always going to be an issue. I think certainly through that first corner, the right-hander, you're going to feel a bit of understeer and the car pushing straight on. But it didn't look like the Toyota was pushing very hard to stay close. So you could be on an in-lap now.
Well, there is the gravel trap that has been dragged onto the circuit. Look at the fans in the grandstands. This is Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening. Now, lots and lots of them will be locals who've come out of town just to see the action, but they'll be doing that all weekend. But then lots of them, you know, I drove down Sunday night into Monday morning, and there were lots and lots of British and Dutch registered vehicles on the road coming into the campsites then as well.
How are they going to clear that gravel from that corner? Because it's a slow zone. I mean, you know, the marshals have either got to get the leaf blowers out, or they're going to have to get the brooms out with cars coming past them, unless they take people off and through pit lane somehow. Because even at 50 miles an hour, it's not safe for those guys to go out there. They've got the leaf blowers ready.
The answer is
they are going to come into the chicane.
Cars are being told to stay right at the Ford chicane because the marshals are going to try and clear the gravel. Either that, or we've got to live with the slow zone there for 45 minutes.
Which isn't going to happen.
Well, now, and you say, well, that ruins everything. But it doesn't. Because in a race, we might end up with a slow zone for 45 minutes. It's as much a race simulation as a clean track is a race simulation. You don't learn what you want to learn, but it's a race, and it might happen that way.
Yeah,
now,
there's a lot of gravel there.
There
so
is
they're
a
going
lot
to
of
have to stay right for the first half, and then going to have to stay left for the second half whilst they blow the gravel to the inside of the racetrack.
Exactly so. So they're doing the racing line first, which is understandable. And actually, the leaf blowers, those are pretty decent leaf blowers to be moving gravel that big.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind that they're supposed to move leaves.
Well, they're the full spec, 8-day-a-week tree surgeon spec leaf blowers.
Yeah.
I wonder what they'd have done a few years ago, before slow zones, before all of this. Would they have just said, yeah, carry on running?
Brooms. Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm just thinking maybe would they have put double yellows and brooms, or would they just said,
get on with it?
Yeah.
In the meantime,
stationary yellow, carry on.
In the meantime, Nico Lapierre is doing a 15-minute lap, probably.
Well, listen, after that venture over the curbs, not sure I'd be in a hurry to get back to the team either.
You're going to get a wigging, aren't you? Proper wigging.
But by the time he gets back, he doesn't need any telling off, does he? He's told himself off 1,000,001 times.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing you can say can make him feel worse than he does right now.
Into the left, into the right.
Bosh.
And into the left, and it's the red one. Bang! It broke on the way up.
Yeah.
Rather than on the landing.
He thumped the sausage, and it just smashed the suspension arm. Suspension arms are meant to survive a download, not an up thump. And look how, I mean, you saw the airflow. That was not computational fluid dynamics, that was solid gravel fluid dynamics. Showed where the air would go through the gap in the top of the wings that's there to bleed the air pressure if the car gets sideways.
45 minutes to go in this session. Louise is down in the pits, and you've got an American for us?
Hi there, Tracy Crone. I've just walked up to him as you've called my name, Toby. How are you doing, first of all? Tell me what happened. You were just a passenger in that incident.
As soon as I came out of the pits and put the power down, went to the braking zone and at the downlap curves, car just moved to the right and wouldn't stop properly. And then I came over the top of the hill and I realized I probably had a tire coming loose. So I just slowed backed off, and quite exciting going that speed coming around. So, yeah.
A lot of work for the team as well.
Yeah, you know, it was just, I don't really know what happened, but we replaced the hub and the car was fine. So it's just one of those things.
Good stuff. Good to see you. Thanks.
Thank you, Louise. That was Tracy Cohn down there in the Eurasia garage. Put my teeth in.
We'll be together again, Toad, one day. Easy for you to say. Tracy Crone, you know, like so many of the gentleman drivers who are here and they're in the support race, and are in the Road to Le Mans race, such an arch enthusiast, just loves this more than he can tell. And it just keeps coming back. Finances the whole thing. There's Nicky Katzberg with Philippe Eng, two of the new BMW drivers. Katzberg's done lots and lots of endurance racing, many Nürburgring 24s. But as we talked about, the BMW program coming here for the first time, well, since the Williams-built open V12 prototypes, really, you know, with a full-blood factory entry. So, yeah, a whole bunch of guys who don't have a whole lot of Le Mans experience. Michael Christensen watching the monitors in the Pink Pig garage. Porsche, part of Porsche's 70th anniversary celebrations is their 2 regular World Endurance teams are running historic liveries. And Felipe Nasr on board in the Pink Pig. This is a replica of a livery that was on a 917, and the other car with its dark blue bottom half, white top half, and the red and gold stripes reminds us all of the 956, 962 era of Porsche domination in Group C.
So on board in the slow zone, coming back towards the start-finish line. 41 minutes remaining in this 2-hour qualifying session. This is the reason why we've got the slow zone. Nico Lapierre leaning on it, yes. Oh, it broke in the first
It broke
chicane.
in the first thumb.
Broke in the first chicane. That's why he was struggling. Maybe that's why he went wide onto the Red's big sausage curb. He was a passenger early on. Look at that rear wheel. So whilst Nico Lapierre continues in to bring this car back, Louise has moved garages. Louise?
Yep, I'm with Nikki Katzberger. Nikki, early days in your Le Mans career. How's it going so far?
Well, so far it's been good, actually. I mean, yesterday was tough. Everybody was going for fast laps. I think we are P11 at the moment. Lap times were pretty fast. Unfortunately, the Porsche was extremely fast. I don't know how he did that, so we have some work to do still, but so far it's been good fun.
And how about the learning curve for you?
Well, I have done the test day before, so it wasn't my first time on the track, and for now, you see that every time the track is getting faster and faster, so you have to get used to the track a bit, but I think I'm doing okay at the moment.
How are you finding the traffic?
The track is amazing. To be honest, oh, the traffic, I thought you asked the track. No, the traffic is quite tricky, especially the P1s, but we have a really nice system in our car which shows how fast cars are approaching and how close they are, so it's quite doable.
Thank you.
It's called a rear view mirror.
Well, the system that they essentially use is something that also has come out of the Dakar called a Sentinel system. That when a slower car is caught up from a faster car behind, there's a sort of a Wi-Fi zone, a signal sent to that slower car to say, you've got a faster car behind you, please be aware that I need to get through. Why can't the slower car on the Dakar see the faster car behind? Because he's got an enormous 500-meter long cloud of dust being made behind him. He can't see through the mirror because the rear screen is covered in fesh anyway. So it's sort of spun on from that, and the whole ASO who organised the Dakar and the ACO and the whole thing, and the technology has come on leaps and bounds in the last decade or so. It's just fantastic, and made Rally Raid much safer as well. And rather than people taking risks on single track roads and taking wheels off and having big accidents.
And for the drives to the GT cars, you know, having that few seconds knowledge that somebody is right up your exhaust pipe is really critical, because the vision is not as clear as in a road car.
I don't know if I'm looking at the.
Oh, we got a red flag.
Yeah, we have got a red flag.
Sven Muller has stopped out. He's P7 in GT in the Porsche. I wonder if that's caused by him.
We got a red flag, so something else has happened.
Double yellows at Marshall's post 10 and 11. That is into the first chicane, and all our emergency vehicles are scrambling outside of our window. Now, we don't have cameras down there. There are remote circuit cameras. The reason there aren't full-time TV cameras down there yet is because we released the track back to the public road for another day.
Big crash,
is a big one. But the only news that we need to know is exactly what we're seeing there. Sven Muller has... That's not Sven Muller.
That's an LMP2.
It's an LMP1 or 2 car. Somebody has climbed out
someone
and walked
else,
away.
there should be a stop sign on someone else's car, and I can't see it.
Hang on, there's a 54 come back. Just, I'll keep an eye on this.
Race director.
We have a lot of debris on track approaching the first chicane. We have a lot of debris on track approaching the first chicane.
I reckon it's the number 39 Graf car. I reckon, I'm going to take a punt on that it's the number 39 Graf car. Stand to be corrected.
Yeah.
let's just be cool on that for the time being. But with the graphics that we had on some of the data screens that we got up here in the commentary box. So what's he done?
No, Villorba course.
Oh, it's the Villorba course.
I did wonder
47.
about the white and blue race suit. Do you know,
yeah, okay.
In my head, I wondered about that. Well, there is Roberto Lacorte. So who is at the wheel of the 47 car? This is with the BMW
so
coming down into the debris
spun
field.
into the right, spun over to the left. Carbon fibre and bits pouring off the car. We're riding on board with one of the M8 BMWs to give you some idea. That crash happened a long way before he came to a halt.
That's the driver who was out is Giorgio Gt, who, along with Roberto Lacorte, has been running this car in the European Le Mans Series. This is now their 3rd season of racing this car with this team. So Roberto Lacorte has seen the debris field. That has all the hallmarks, Peter, of contact under braking, car turning hard right into the barriers, and then all the frangible objects flying off, diluting some of the energy from it. But it still had wheels on the tub, the engine was still attached, so, you know, the debris coming off is actually a good thing as much as a bad thing.
Yeah. At this stage, you can't really tell it. That could be sort of, I mean, there's definitely broken suspension there, but if the tub is still okay, the car could be fixable.
Yeah, and the good news for them, although they won't get any more running I don't know, they may get some more running tonight, at least Friday is the day off where they would take the car basically down almost to the bare tub and start again. But for Roberto Lacorte and the Cetilar Villorba Corsa team, it was a bit of a tough day yesterday. Had a couple of issues with that car, and they've got a bit more of an issue. And Roberto with Giorgio Gt, joined by Felipe Nasr, the ex-single-seater ace.
This has been quite a troubled session, hasn't it? There's been quite a few issues, quite a few offs. The P1 cars haven't seemed to push on and get anywhere near last year's qualifying times yet. And the track does seem to be good. When you look at the GT cars, they've done pretty well.
It'll be really interesting to see how little of the time that we've had has had a fully green track, though. There's been a slow zone.
Nearly most of the time.
Most of the time. And, you know, OK, well, there was 10 minutes there. Yeah, but in 10 minutes, you'd be lucky to have the right tyre on and be able to get a clear lap. In 10 minutes, because it takes so darn long to get round the track. You know, you're talking 3.5 to 4 minutes on average for most cars to get round this track. All right, you know, on a really hot lap, the P cars are going down around in 3.25 minutes-ish. But now everybody heading to the pits, and race director saying, once you've gone past the scene of the accident, you don't have to do 80 Ks, you can pick up the speed and get back in, because it takes a long time. When we were waiting for one of the practice sessions to finish before we went live yesterday with the Road to Le Mans practice, when we waited for free practice to finish, somebody had taken the checkered flag twice by mistake. Took them another 7 minutes to get the track clear.
Yeah.
You know, no other track in the world does that. No other track in the world takes that time to get round. There's the other of the historic liveries behind the Project 1 car, that very clear black and yellow colour scheme. That's one of the AM cars. And in comes the 68, no, which is the blue one? 67 Ford, yes.
Frank Walliser on the left-hand side, in charge of Porsche's GT endurance racing project. Big fan as well. You need to follow him on Twitter because he's quite amusing with some of the stuff that he puts out. Good sport. On his weekends off as well, with going to some Porsche celebrations for their 70th anniversary last weekend and finding some pretty cool stuff. So go and give him a dig out on Twitter and the like. In the meantime, just over a half hour remaining in this session. If it's going to be able to get restarted, it might be touch and go. Might be touch and go.
Again, you saw the data system, the race control data system there, right above the driver's eye line in that shot, showing red. That's the current flag status. There you go. Rear view mirror, not a rear view mirror. TV screen for the rear-facing camera, because now you can use the camera to see so much more. And again, you've also got the receptors there for the Sentinel system, so all of that goes together. Renger van der Zande, and there's Fritz van Aert on the right. He is Jumbo Supermarkets. He's the man who puts all the money into this, into the Jumbo race day at Zandvoort that had 230,000 fans at it a couple of weekends ago, and he's the man who has bankrolled that program, races regularly with Jan Lammers, and then Geert van der Gaard joining the team here for Le Mans.
The full grandstand opposite us looks like it's being emptied little by little. Maybe some people have said, you know what, I might go and get to the front of the queue for the food stands.
Beer and frites time, mate, and a bit of merguez.
Absolutely, because this session might not get restarted. Has the wind been taken out of the sails of the session? Arguably, yes.
Well, of course, the other thing that happens now that is a revelation to anybody who came here in the 60s or the 70s or the early 80s is you can walk away and still have live commentary 100% of the time, because it's broadcast on the radio here. Radio Le Mans in English, Radio 24 in French, keeps all the fans up to date all the time about the racing. You never have to lose touch. You never have to wake up and go, hang on a minute,
what's happened?
Weren't the Lanciers leading?
Yeah, it's actually simpler than that, because now there is full 4G for Brits roaming in whatever network they may have, so you can listen to us on the app.
God help you.
Fullish 4G, quote, sometimes 3G.
I've got some of the quickest 4G I've ever experienced here this weekend. Fair play to them to put in some extra marts and turn the wick up. Fair play.
Problem is when you get 200,000 people on their phone, the signal goes a little bit.
It's been working so far. It's been working so far. Right then, Nico Lapierre has done one of the longest laps for all the wrong reasons after that suspension failure into the last corner. Louise has got maybe a bit of a quiet Nico down there, Lou.
Yeah, it's a busy garage, so we're just moving out of the way of all the mechanics working on the car. Nico, we saw the pictures. What happened from your point of view?
Yeah, in the last 4 chicane was quali lap, so I took a bit of more curb than usual, and we had a rear right suspension issue. It broke on the curve, so then I couldn't manage the last corner. So we will check now, but obviously it was quite an aggressive lap. We have good pace in the car. I wanted to finish this lap, and in the end we broke the suspension, so we will check and go again for the next session.
Okay, thank you.
Well, it looked, I mean, Peter, you were talking and suddenly you cut to the onboard and he's like flying over the curbs. Oh, it really looked like an aggressive lap, and it was just that millimetre too aggressive.
Yeah, I think he was pushing very hard, as he said. Yeah, he thought he was on a decent lap. Yeah. Didn't really look like that from the sectors, to be fair, but it all depends on what tyres he was on and what fuel load he was on. But yeah, that car now getting repaired on the rear, the suspension damage. Looks like it's not too badly damaged. They'll get it back out there.
Exactly. At least he didn't hit anything with the rest of the car. And there you saw in the picture in the garage there, the worst thing about having an incident like this is that you have to explain it half a dozen times to all the different TV crews. Yeah, here he was just a passenger and he was just trying to get it around so he could limp back. Luckily,
nearly spun it over the line, didn't he?
Yeah.
Nearly spun it over the line.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So it's this first strike there, that's what breaks it. And he really straddled the curb heavily, didn't he? By that stage, I mean, he was lucky to actually get to the chicane. He was trying to complete the lap somehow. But there we go. 28 minutes still to go in this session, so we may end up continuing if we can clear up the debris field down to the first chicane. And actually, I think the bigger question for Eduardo Freitas will be how badly the damage, how badly the barriers were damaged, because once they've taken a hit...
Yeah, we'll update you on the plan at this moment. When you reach the pit lane, we put the car to the garage, you stay on board, we drain the fuel, and we will try to do quali attempts.
Okay.
Yep. I had a sneaky thought to myself, because this is perfect situation. If we can, within the next 10 minutes, get back on track, you'll see all the P1 cars going to the front of the queue and getting, hopefully, a clear lap and a proper quali attempt. And we should see that 3:17 of Nakajima coming down a bit.
Maybe some cars won't go out. Maybe some won't go out. Who knows? Just
I doubt it. I think
everybody will.
Yeah, I think everyone who's up front is going to, because you know, if you look at P1, it's certainly not. It's not settled there. Not on those times.
Yeah.
P2, Why? Any of them. You know, it's all up for grabs. So
and everybody's going to try and figure out how on earth the 91 Porsche went so fast in GT Pro, including their teammates in 92. So yeah, I think, you know, if we get 15 minutes and we've got 27 left, so if we go, you know, green in 10 minutes, then yeah, there'll be an absolute gallop out to try and set a lap. Absolutely right. Inside the Pratt & Miller Corvette Racing Garage. It's a great place to hang around. The Corvettes don't just look great, they sound fabulous. Wherever you are, you always know when there's a Corvette coming. The Rolling Thunder.
So it won't be long until they're the only normally aspirated car in GT.
Yeah. Well, you know,
Porsche are running a turbo in the road car now, aren't they?
Since the 1960s, they've been talking about a mid-engine Corvette. Zora Arko-Duntov, the man who developed the engine for the Corvette, the big block Chevy, he was the first man to try and build a mid-engine car when it was still the Stingray. And there's still talk that the next Corvette, and it's always the next Corvette is going to be mid, the next one's going to be mid-engine, the next one's going to be... I don't know. It's American sports car. You want a big V8 up front. They don't do... Yeah, those Europeans do mid-engines, fancy, you know, highfalutin.
With aluminum.
Turbocharged, you know, multi-cylinders and everything. America's sports car needs a V8 growling away at the front. You know, it's like if you're going to buy a Mustang in the UK, they're not going to sell any V6s.
No.
Because the reason you buy a Mustang is because you want a V8.
Yeah.
You know, fuel economy, who cares? It's a V8. I got a V8. Same deal. You know, as you say, though, however, the front engine in the brand new Aston Martin Vantage is a turbocharged V8. Stewart's decision says lap 1 and 2 of car number 7 have been deleted. Now, those are for the second of the two Toyotas, which hasn't gone faster, hasn't eclipsed its sister car's time from yesterday. So that will have been an energy usage issue, one imagines.
Shows you how tight some of these garages is. I mean, that Aston Martin Racing garage has got 3 cars in, so they've sort of squeezed a little bit of extra space by not having the walls between each car. There's not many other garages, if at all, anything that's got a complete run-through.
Information to the pit lane, information to the pit lane. The session will not be resumed. This session will not be resumed. Free practice, qualifying 3 will start at 21:30. Qualifying 3 will start at 21:30.
So the final session will not be 2 hours, but 2.5 hours for people to run at 9:30 here local time. It's just gone 8:30 here, so they'll be back on track in under an hour.
And the reason for that is the barrier repairs are clearly required and can't be completed before we run out of time. So instead of just allowing the clock to run down and everybody loses 45 minutes, what they're doing is going, right, we're going to stop it now, and we're going to give you an extra 30 minutes. So we're going to have our 1 hour break, starting from when the red flag was, basically to the next half hour, and then we'll go, which means dinner time comes early for us. And we will be back on air.
Does it though, Martin? Does it?
Yeah, mate, it certainly does. We'll be back on air at 21:30 Central European time, which is 19:30 Greenwich Mean Time. So whether that's morning, afternoon or evening, wherever you are watching, I'm sure you'll be able to convert the time zone. So 30 minutes earlier than you're expecting. In fact, we'll be on air 15 minutes before the session starts. So we'll be on air at 21:15 local time. Now that means that unless it rains, we may still have that charge out onto the circuit. You know, that's historically what's happened. If conditions have been good, the track's been rubbering up, they'll go out right at the very beginning of the final dark session and try for a time if they feel there's more in the car. Ben Barker bounces out of the 86 Porsche. Was Alex Davidson? That was Alex Davidson getting out. Mike Wainwright getting in. Practicing driver changes, and the team are practicing this stuff all the time. Brake changes, clutch, you know, electronics, corners, changing wheels, changing suspension, whole corners of the car, all the way through the week. In fact,
Sorry, we were watching one of the guys do some testing, some wheel testing, changing yesterday. I forget which team it was, and he threaded a nut. So they learned something, even though it was a problem. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, and then they analysed what was the problem with the hub, with the thread, with the nut. Okay, right. Well, that didn't do so. And that was just on a quiet Thursday morning, 6 hours before the racetrack was live.
Not having been up for 18 hours, not exhausted, not rained on, not sweating, and not with the pressure to do it in a race and get the car down and out in 23 seconds.
Nor hungry, and he still had the problem. So, yes, they're always learning. That's where, and you touched on it earlier, that's where, you know, when Alan was with Audi, you know, they went through all the scenarios. Right, we need to replace the turbo, which is what they did in the last couple of years. So they bring the yellow box with turbo written on it. But all the 3 correct spanners, the 16, the 13 and the 10, are in the box. So they didn't need to go to the big snap-on box on the side and go, who's got the 16? But they're in the box with the turbo.
They're pre-kitted, and more than that, out at the back of Audi's garage, when they first started all this, everything was arranged exactly as it is in the race bay. Exactly as it is in the race bay. Same distance, same allocation. If it was on filing cabinet 3 from the left, draw 3 down in the race bay, that's where it was at the back of the garage. So every single day of your working life in the factory, everything is in one position, and when you get to the racetrack, nothing changed. So that moment of panic where you're going, where's the doohickey for the widget? Everybody knew where the doohickey for the widget was. Ollie Gavin using a bit of time to make sure that their office chairs are as quick as everything else. Saw Tommy Milner there being wheeled around. And Tommy Milner, I think they're all getting ready to do some driver seat change practice. Here we go. Yardley, Hastings' top tall racing driver in a yellow race suit, is in his car. That doesn't narrow it down very much, does it? Ollie Gavin. Ollie Gavin has now been, how long did we figure with Corvette? Getting on for 16 years or something?
2002, since 2002 he's been with Corvette.
16 years, 17th year with Corvette. Yep. That is a long time to spend with the manufacturer. In that time, Dirk Muller has been a Porsche junior, an Audi driver, an independent BMW driver, and is now
Ferrari
a Ferrari driver, and is now a Ford driver. Yeah, absolutely.
And he was with BMW for a long time in the middle of that. So
with the
touring car.
Yeah,
and did Le Mans, didn't he, with the E92?
That's us. Look, that's us on telly. Hi.
Yay.
So, the grandstand's emptying, but all sorts of other people are going to keep their seats before the resumption of this session in now 50 minutes' time. This is the view at the back of the garages. You don't often see that kind of view. This was the moment 15 minutes into the session with Andy Priaulx with the number 67 Ford GT off at Tête Rouge. The car didn't actually stop moving, banged it into first gear, and then he limped it home. Then we had one of the SMP LMP2s clip the inside curb in the Porsche curves, then went to the inside on the other side through the right-hander. Mike Conway in the number 7 Toyota had an off, but through the gravel he was okay. Nothing damaged except the loss of a lap. He managed to get back out on track. It was very slippery at the top of the hill there in the first part of the session. There was his lockup from the rear angle. Still, it is the Toyota's first and second, though, on the grid. Will the remaining 2.5 hours of qualifying see a change? Then we had the Porsche number 94. That then was Sven Muller having off into Indianapolis, hit the tyre barrier very hard on the left-hand side. Behind the tyre barrier were the 2 concrete blocks. They had a big shift of position. Then rear suspension broken by Nico Lapierre in the Signatec Alpine. He broke it on the way into the Ford chicane, and then had to do more than an entire lap, more than 13.626 kilometers with a broken suspension, because he'd missed the pit lane entry. He managed to get it going. He only lost 9 seconds, by the way, on that lap, including that spin and breaking the suspension from his previous best. What could have been? That could have been a cracker. And then the session was eventually stopped by the Giorgio Sernagiotto having a big off with his LMP2 car on the way down to the first chicane. He's out of the car, he's okay, but damage, we suspect, to the barriers on the right-hand side, as they are having big damage done to themselves in there.
I imagine that's probably a little bit what Nico Lapierre's moment felt like, actually.
When he got back to the pits.
Yeah. So a little bit of driver change practice. Ollie Gavin still in the 64 Corvette, waiting to do a little bit of rehearsing. I know Tommy Milner was suited up. There is Milner. And the head of Toyota's engineering group goes to have a bit of a confab. Look at the big side intrusion structure on the C7R. The man who's in charge of this whole thing, Doug Feehan, his only interest is making sure that everybody gets out of this safe. After that, we worry about the racing. Look at the detail here. Look at that aged enamel sign in the Porsche garage. Where did they find that? They didn't. It's a stick-on. But the whole thing of it, you know, the bricks, the wooden toolboxes and everything else, all nicely done. And the old-style tiles on the floor, those are all livery as well. It's a really nice little touch. Nice little sense of humour going through the whole thing there.
Yeah. Now, the session has come to an end early, as you may well know, but Louise is still running up and down pit lane, and you've got Andy Priaulx with you. Take it away, Lou.
Andy Priaulx from the 67. We saw the incident. You quickly got that car back as soon as you could and stayed in it for the session. What happened for you?
Yeah, I mean, guys did a great job to repair that. Luckily, we went in absolutely square backwards, so the damage was obviously quite a lot of money's worth, but they got the car really ready together, and it's a strange incident. We're still looking into it. I swapped ends completely, just turning into Tetra Rouge. Looks like my left rear was on the grass, but why was it on the grass? So the next lap immediately, a prototype did the same thing. So after my incident, they started the session again, and then a prototype went straight off. So I don't know if it was some contamination on the circuit, or whether we had an issue, or whether I put a wheel on the grass, but it's a strange one. Yeah, it was our first lap, so.
There were an awful lot of incidents in that session.
Yeah, I think the track was really, really bad after the race before. I think that the track condition is poor, and yeah, everybody's struggling a bit, to be honest. There's a lot of red flags and yellows, and, you know, it wasn't a great session.
No, it wasn't. Car okay? Everything ready for when we do restart?
Yeah, we're all ready to go now, so all is fine, and we'll see how the session goes tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Cheers, love.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Andy Priaulx. We'll see how the session starts. It will start in 45 minutes' time, wherever you are around the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is good evening here. It's 9:15. We'll be back on track at 9:30 here, local time, but we will be back on air 5 minutes before then. 5 minutes before then, at 25 past the hour. So we will be back on air in 40 minutes' time. We look forward to speaking to you then. In the meantime, we're going to go and find some very French frites in the meantime. We'll speak to you then. Bye for now.
pas derrière moi parce que je des années.
Ragazzi, siete in camera. Wait a second.
Thank you.
La vuoi più lunga?
No,
Ho preso. Ha preso?
non so se sto
Queste sono
poi tagliate.
le prese più piccole queste qua, come qua.
No, ci sono.
Bon.
C'est l'enfer. Alors Michael, c'est bon? Là, vis de push. Vis de push. Vis de push. On est fou.
Excellente journée, 20h. Qui est présent si vous nous entendez ou si vous reconnaissez cette personne, c'est parent latent au point un peu de village, si vous croisez le chemin. Donc vous allez se rapprocher d'un contrôleur, personne dans cette chaîne, vous allez sortir des manifestations avec les vidéos plus orange pour ramener ce point un peu
travaille sérieusement. Les notes sont bien posées.
Au niveau des lambdas, on peut voir quand il s'arrête, mais si on a changé c'est pas assez, on fait. Non, c'est la posture, on a
Vous changez vous-même cette fois les pneus. Essayez aussi les combinaisons de pilotes et regardez avec devant la seule départ de départ.
Il est 21h, excellent début de soirée. Merci d'être au rendez-vous, chers amis. Quelques messages sur les écrans géants. Après sa sortie de piste et passage aussi, on revient sur cette sonde.